All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Difficult Conversations by Supply the Why. We got an outstanding show today. We're going to take a little bit different twist, and we're going to talk about the powers of positivity during a pandemic with Josh Peach. Sounds like one of those old tongue twisters right there, but it's a real show with a real person. So Josh is very special to me because when I first started out with the Supply the Why venture, doing the podcast/webcast here, I had no idea what I was doing. I needed all kinds of guidance. So I reached out to this guy, Josh, who runs a very popular podcast called Be Awesome. And he was amazing, helping me get started from what kind of equipment I needed to making sure I take a deep breath before I go on so I don't pass out because of nervousness. So without further ado, let me bring on Josh. Hey, Josh, how you doing?
Dean, happy to be here. How are you, my friend?
I'm fantastic, man. I'm so happy that you took the time away from your family to come join us tonight. So, tell us a little bit about Be Awesome, for everybody that doesn't know what it is and what you do and how you do it.
Yeah, no, that's great. And this is fantastic. Honored to be here. First Facebook Live, so I apologize if I screw things up terribly. But Be Awesome's on my shirt. I got it right here. It's 3 periodic elements, beryllium, gold, and samarium. That means not much. It means be awesome with using periodic elements. Started it in 2018 and kind of took off. It was supposed to be the title of a book, Be Awesome, The Essential Elements to Kicking Ass. And I was supposed to be a bunch of life stories and things that got me through some tough times in my life. And what happened is the name of the company and my public speaking just took off like crazy. So I haven't had much time to do much writing. Did a whole bunch of traveling and started a podcast. And then the podcast took off with, like you do, having guests. Nobody wants to listen to the host. They want to listen to the guests that they bring on. So, my first guest was I went up to North Pole, Alaska, actually went on site to the city hall and had the only person legally named Santa Claus. And he looks like what Santa Claus you would imagine looks like, and have had a number of guests, 91 or so podcasts over the course of time. And really all we do is try to focus on, how to be positive in difficult times. Right now my keynotes that I'm doing, it's titled Always Find Time to Celebrate. And it's catered directly to public employees, employees of public K-12 schools and local government agencies that have really taken a really hard hit from all angles. And, most of them haven't been able to take even a minute to breathe and just go, wow, look at what we've been through. I mean, think about March 1st of last year. We weren't wearing masks. The idea of being completely shut down and remote learning and all this stuff wasn't even on the radar screen. And then 13 days from now is going to be the 1-year anniversary that we had to flip the script our entire life. And there was a lot of hard work, and we've accomplished a lot. I mean, it's not perfect, but we've accomplished a lot. So I really just try to get people to maybe think a little bit differently, or for them to remind themselves of how incredible they are. And then the last piece to it is, I start every talk out with the reality of, I always tell you, if you're with 2 other people, look to your left and look to your right. And if they both look happy, then there's probably something going on in your life, because depression, divorce, drug addiction, dependency, there's a number of disease. These things affect roughly 1 in 3 people in the United States today. They're going through something traumatic that we just don't know about, that they're not sharing with us. That's causing them a difficulty to go throughout their day. And we always have to remember everyone has a story, whether they want to tell it to us or not, and just try to be a little bit more understanding, I guess. So, but we're having a lot of fun doing it, talking to a lot of people. So, yeah.
Because I enjoy listening to you. I mean, you have all these motivational people on. But before we go any further, you said something, and we just kind of went past it. You said you met with the only person in the North Pole legally named Santa Claus.
Yeah,
what was that like, and how hard was it to find that person?
So my mind works in really weird ways. So I did my first 2 podcast episodes, and I was doing by myself. I did them under my peach tree, and my last name is Peach. So that's someplace that I'm comfortable in my yard. And I realized after my second episode that I'm really boring when it comes to talking on these podcasts, because you're just looking at a microphone. Like, this is cool because I get to look at you and talk to you, and there's an audience and everything else. But when you're just recording, it's very hard for you to feel engaged with yourself, let alone engage others. So I just was like, I need to start having guests. And I was going to Alaska anyway, and I remembered reading an article. I've been going to Alaska a couple times a year for the last 10 or so years. And so I remember reading an article. I was going to Fairbanks of a city councilor named Santa Claus. And so I was like, Google search. So I did city councilor Santa Claus. And sure enough, there he was. He's actually, tried to run for president. He's done all these crazy things. And I'm like, this guy's got to have a story. So I just sent the city hall email address, santaclaus@northpole.ak, an email. And I said, Santa, I want to have you on my podcast. I'm not sure what your story is, but I want to hear about it. And he was reluctant. And I was like, okay, I'll be up there on Tuesday, July 27th. I'll see you at City Hall at 9. And I literally forced him to come and do a podcast with me. And so we did it. And he's become like one of my closest friends. Like he's just an amazing human being. He's a Christian monk. And he was looking for a sign in his morning prayers. He was living in Nevada, and he literally, like, he looks like what you would imagine Santa Claus looks like. And he went out to get his newspaper, and someone driving by said, "Good morning, Santa." And at that moment, he packed everything, chose a life of minimalism, moved to North Pole, Alaska, changed his name legally to Santa Claus. And it was all to support and try to bring awareness and help to kids that are homeless and dire straits around the world, not just in the United States. And it opened my eyes to the realization that we have 3 million of our kids in the United States that are either homeless or in foster care today. And that's a staggering number. And so we've done a lot to really help, bring awareness as well as financial support with our shirt sales to homeless and foster kids in the United States over the last 3 years.
That's an incredible start. Like,
yeah.
I wish that my story for the first one was even halfway that interesting.
Yeah, I got one better for you. So in that podcast, we decided to start selling T-shirts. So I committed $3 of every T-shirt for as long as we sold T-shirts to go to programs that helped our youth. And so the first one was the Fairbanks Youth Advocate Center, and we raised almost $3,000 in 5 months without even knowing I was in the T-shirt business. And so it was in December of 2018, I flew back up there to present the check. And I went to the diner just outside of North Pole, Alaska, and I ordered their special omelet, which had reindeer in it. And so, and I didn't even think about it. And so I sent a text to Amy, my fiance, and I told her about the omelet and took a picture of the description of this loaded omelet with reindeer. And she's like, "So let me get this straight. You're having breakfast with Santa Claus, eating a reindeer omelet. What's wrong with you?" I said, "I don't think it's Rudolph, so I think we're good." But yeah.
So Josh, I got to get right into it here.
Yeah.
How difficult are you finding to have your brand? Because clearly your brand is to try to always stay on the glass half full side of life.
Yeah.
How difficult has it been to do that during this pandemic?
Yeah, when everything you wear says "be awesome," it's hard for you to be a jerk, outside in the world, and your interactions with people, because then you're not being awesome. So every time you look in the mirror, you're reminded of what you need to do. It's hard. It's hard no matter what you're wearing or what you're doing. Life has come at everyone in strange, mysterious, and sometimes crippling ways, and no exclusion to me. 2020 was a difficult year. I mean, COVID was tough, but I had a whole myriad of other things that happened that consume me, that make it difficult. But the biggest things that I can tell people is look around, like look at who you associate with. Like, I'm very lucky. My tribe is very small as far as who I go to, but they're some of the most incredible, stand-up, loyal, supportive and compassionate people in my life. So when I have a challenge, I've got people to lean on and go to. And that's something a lot of people don't have, either the comfort or have the people around them to, or they've chosen the wrong people. You might have someone that was a friend 20 years ago and they were a great friend, and you've gone different directions. So you kind of have to take an inventory on things and say, who's in my life that's good and who's in my life that might not be so good. Remove as much of the drama as you can, because that's just, it's completely unnecessary. And then think about what you consume. Start tracking how much time you're spending on your phone. And I'm the first to admit, I spend way too much time on my phone. I spend way too much time looking at things. But the news and social media, it can cripple you. And it crippled me in May and June, as I told you before you and I really started talking. I was consumed by everything that was going on. I was devastated. And I thought the world was coming to an end. I wasn't, I'd look eagerly to the east to hope that the sun came up, because I just didn't think it was possible at times. And so you really
Josh,
have
what specifically are you talking about? You said that
the social. I mean,
what
it was everything in the culmination of the social unrest and all of the riots and everything that was happening, and just the country divided, not just in race, but just we were divided in how people looked at things politically, how people looked at things socially, how we looked at each other racially. It was like if you didn't agree with someone, you and I talked about this, like, the Black Lives Matter. If you weren't supportive, if you said anything other than that Black Lives Matter, then you were assumed a racist, or you were assumed if you said Blue Lives Matter, if you said every life matter, it was like you didn't know. You want to care about everyone, and you want to be faithful and compassionate for everyone, and you want to do all this, but everybody was basing it on a couple of words that you said, and God forbid you said the wrong word. God forbid you said the wrong thing. And then it was just everybody's all over you, and social media, it was just, people were just doing character assassinations left and right. Like you and I talked about, it's like, hey, we've been friends all this time, and it was just to set you up to let you know that I was a Republican or a Democrat and you're the other one, and I hate you now. It's like, come on, like, let's all just be decent people to one another for a change, and figure out how to get through all this thing called life and with a smile on our face. And it's really hard. And, I've basically, been on a 10-day revolving quarantine because my father's now in a senior health home and a rehab facility, and you have to be on a 10-day quarantine, to be able to see him, and you don't know when you're going to be able to see him because you can only be outside, so you can't go inside. So the weather has to be nice. So in New England, I've been able to see my dad in almost 3 months, and that's just really. It's hard, that's hard to be positive. And he suffers from dementia, and it's bad now. So it's literally every day, like between 5 and 6 every day. It's Groundhog Day for me. I have the same 4-minute conversation with my father that I had the day before. And it's the realization that I'll never have my dad again. And I cherish the fact that I get to talk to him every day, but I don't get to talk to him about anything. It's just, how you doing? Did you eat? Did you walk around? It's just kind of hard. So, it takes a lot of work. I'll tell you, it takes a lot of work. But being miserable, that takes a lot of work too. But it's something people tend to gravitate to that easier too, because they think it's, everybody's gonna leave them alone or whatever their reasoning for it is. Miserable sucks. Can I say that? It's a family show. Sorry.
No, it's all good. But I am gonna jump in real quick here, and just ask you, so how are you finding, or what are you doing to find the energy to stay focused on the positive? Because let's face it, you are in the minority, my man. Like most people, it's like you said, like you have the media, you have people, social media, you have cancel culture, you have all these things going on right now. Yeah. So most people, the overwhelming majority of people, are focused on the glass half empty side of life, because that's what everybody's gearing you towards. So how are you able to have the energy to go glass half full? Find
laughter fast. So when you first wake up, find something to laugh at. I'm very lucky. I have a 3-year-old that we nicknamed Captain Chaos, that he literally, doesn't matter what day it is, he'll do something in the first couple minutes of interactions, just makes you laugh. And then when I get to my office, which is a very stressful place, I'll have something, I try to have something funny. So like on my desk here, I've got, speaking of Santas, this one isn't my friend Santa, but it's sketchy Santas. I just found it under my desk, and it's some of the funniest pictures of kids just being terrorized by the Santa Clauses that they sit in the mall. You just look at this stuff, like the book stuff my dad says, like, find something funny, call Zappos and press 2 for the joke of the day. Like, there's something about laughter that gets you to get past a lot of stuff. And then the second thing is that nobody ever said you couldn't reset your day, and nobody's ever said when you can do it. So if time's overwhelming and you got to step away, that's when you just have to kind of take a hard reset and just kind of say, you know what, I can't get through all the stuff that I've gotten on my plate right now. I'm just going to step away for 10 minutes. I'm going to do a complete brainwash reset of myself. I'm going to come back and try to tackle what I can, and realize I can only tackle what I can tackle. Like, if you're doing your best, that's probably the best that you can do. So there's no sense to beat yourself up about it. I'm a perfectionist in my work, and so I have a bit of a hard time with that sometimes. But sometimes today I was completely overwhelmed with everything and getting ready for this, and I walked out just to kind of take a break, and there's Amy making a sandwich, and I was able to take a couple of minutes and just grab something to eat, and kind of just decompress and reset. And, staying in that moment of misery, just, you got to get out of it as quick as possible. But laughter's key.
Now that sounds like great advice. Taking a moment to stop and smell the roses, like that's a saying that everybody's heard. But it seems to me like with everything that's going on, it's more important to do that now than ever. Just taking stock of things that make life worth living.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, a year ago, we wouldn't be able to process where we are right now. Like if someone had told you that, hey, a year from now, this is where we're going to be, you'd been looking around for cameras thinking that you were getting punked. Yeah. But here we are. And yeah, I think one of the big take homes that I've gotten just from life, and like you said, like, I sympathize with what you're going through with your father. I've talked about it time and time again. I lost my father in 2019. And it was weeks before I was going to complete a promise I had made him to complete my master's degree. So that was difficult, but I find positivity in the fact that I submitted my very last assignment of grad school at his bedside. Yep. And he was still able to talk at that time, and I was able to turn my computer around and say I did it.
Yeah. I think, one of the things that, if I don't mean to interrupt you, but one of the things that's vitally important in people's lives that I'm still a work in progress in is to make sure it's not a bucket list, but there's a lot of things in life that we want from people, or that we want to give people, that we don't get the chance to do. And we go, I wish I got that chance. And, one of them was my grandmother, who was a Portuguese immigrant from Madeira, moved. My grandfather and my grandmother moved with my mom when she was 12 and her brother on May 13th, 1966, and gave up everything, had just a few $100s to their name to give us an opportunity at a better life here. And my grandfather, who was my hero, but lived his life as a custodian and working in a machine shop. I never got to say thank you. He sacrificed his whole life, and I never got to say thank you. And he packed his entire life at my age, 45, just a little bit older than me, packed his entire life in one suitcase to give me a chance, and I never got to say thank you. So, in 2016, I got to have my grandmother come and be in an audience of a couple hundred people and put a picture of the Madeira, the island, up, and had her come in, and she had a standing ovation. I got to say thank you. And with my dad and I we never said we loved each other. We never said I love you. My dad is a Vietnam helicopter pilot for the 101st Airborne, the tip of the spear, as they were referred to. My dad's a guy's guy, always wearing flannel shirts. And if he wasn't cutting something up, he was building something. And if it couldn't be fixed with duct tape or super glue, it couldn't be fixed. And he's just a great guy. But I never said I love you, and he never said I love you back. And, just a couple of months ago, I was making reference to it, and we were getting off the phone. And even though he's got dementia, I said, "Good night, Dad." And he said, "I love you." And I said, "I love you too, Dad." And that was huge, because I don't know that I would be able to live my life with my dad passing, which will happen inevitably, without him knowing that. At least I said it. And so that's something a lot of people carry, that they either think that they have tomorrow, or they just don't know how to say it. And, the only thing I can say is say whatever you feel and however you feel, as long as it's positive and as long as it makes you feel good, say it and get it out there, because it'll make all the difference in the world.
Amen to that, man. It's one of the things that that I like to talk about sometimes when I talk to kids, and I gave a speech a while back to a group of high school kids, and I said, be conscious of the fact that tomorrow is not promised to any of us. Mm-hmm. And that's a hard thing to hear. In my line of work, in my day job, that's something that we are probably more aware of than the normal person, because we see so much finality as law enforcement. But to regular people, people that don't deal with that awfulness, it's a hard thing to hear that you could be here 1 minute, and gone the next, and you might not even know it. It might be something that's beyond your control. It usually is something that's beyond your control. Yeah. So you need to kind of seize the moment.
I'm 12 days away. What's the anniversary day of the announcement of the closing down the country? I'm on March 13th. I also almost died eating a prime rib sandwich. I almost choked to death, and stopped breathing for quite a period of time. And a friend and my hero, Paul Anastasi, performed the Heimlich maneuver, broke 2 ribs, and brought me back to life. They say if you break a rib, that you're successful in performing the Heimlich. I guess he broke 2, so he did a really good job. But I even have short-term memory loss with that. I do. I know. I felt it. I mean, I believe I saw what my death was going to look like. And I got a second chance at living, and even I take it for granted sometimes. But yeah, every day is a blessing. We got to be reminded of that.
That's a crazy story. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? That's the first I'm hearing of this.
Yeah. So March 13th, I was in Atlantic City, 2017. I was in Atlantic City delivering a keynote, and people in New Jersey, people everywhere are great. Don't let the news and everything fool you. New Jersey's got some amazing people, and it was for the facility directors of public schools, and majority of guys. And I got done with the keynote, and I always say I get to talk to everybody, but I get to talk to nobody. When I deliver a keynote, I'm on a stage, hundreds of people in the audience, but no direct interaction. So they invited me down to their trade show, and I said absolutely. So I went down, and as soon as I walked in, guys high-fiving, hugging me. One hands me a beer. I took a sip of this beer. It was the most delicious beer I ever had. And a Stella, I think it was a Stella. It doesn't matter. It was just delicious. And the next thing I know, someone hands me a sandwich, and I take a bite of that sandwich, and it was amazing. It was just like this. It was almost like a euphoric taste of food. It was my last supper, And so I go to take my.
I don't mean to laugh at you, but
but I took the second bite of my sandwich, and apparently it was like the size of a Volkswagen because I was so excited from the first bite, and I inhaled it, and I stopped breathing. Like the food got lodged in my throat, and I didn't do any of this. I didn't do anything. What I did is I just leaned over on a high top table, hoping apparently that it would dislodge, and I blacked out, and I was out for a bit. I don't know anything really. I don't really remember much else other than when I came through and I was sitting in a chair and I was just a disaster. And the paramedics were doing all these tests on me and basically tried to bring me to the hospital. And I denied the hospital ride and instead drove home from Atlantic City, New Jersey in the middle of the night to tell Amy that I almost died eating a prime rib sandwich. And she said, there's phones for that. And I was like, yeah, I thought this was a little bit more serious. And I was supposed to return my rental car to Philadelphia. I forgot that part too. So I just stayed home for the next couple of days and just kind of thought about life and all that goes with it and realized that I almost lost it to a sandwich. So I haven't had prime rib since. And it was one of my favorite meals.
That's a crazy story. Josh, and I'm certainly glad that the prime rib did not win.
Yeah, I didn't get the best
able to overcome.
Yeah.
So, Josh, moving on from there. So, as far as your business, so the Be Awesome brand.
Yeah.
So, how has that been affected with everything that's going on, and how have you had to change your business model? Because there's a lot of people out there that own businesses that have things that they want to do. So, what advice can you give us?
Yeah, I was totally devastated. So I worked for a startup going back to 2004, and I became their corporate evangelist. So Be Awesome's public. So I make money primarily from speaking with regard to Be Awesome, doing keynotes.
I'm sorry, Josh, evangelist?
Yeah, so evangelist for a software company. I was an evangelist. So I had two sources of revenue.
What is an evangelist is what I'm asking.
An evangelist. Yeah. So the corporate evangelist is the third definition, which is someone that speaks enthusiastically about something they're passionate about, nothing tied with religion. So it's basically an outward facing employee that's the ambassador of goodwill to their clients and is doing the best that they can internally to making sure that the employees are, culture is being retained and employees understand what their purpose and their meaningful work is. So basically in 2020, I was collecting a W-2, a paycheck from a software company that I've been with for a while to go out and do speaking. So instead of pay a group Supply the Y paying me to speak, this company was paying me. And then I had other gigs that I was booking for Be Awesome that they were paying Be Awesome directly. So it was basically I was billing in two different ways. And then when March 13th hit, I had my remaining 39 events for the year, all canceled within 100 hours on both ends. So I had no income from Be Awesome. I had income from the software company, but because all those events canceled and everything seemed like it was not going to be turning around, my position there was eliminated in November. So, which completely understandable. I'm amazed that they kept me around as long as they did with everything. January 1st was a very easy wake up call for me because I just said anything that I get in 2021 is a bonus because right now I'm forecasting just about zero in revenue. I sold T-shirts was basically how I sold T-shirts and I sold face masks. When this whole thing first started, I had 500 face masks made just to make a few bucks to offset, the loss of revenue. And then I've been selling T-shirts. And that obviously isn't going to make ends meet. I'm fortunate that I was able to get another position with another software company that I've been employed at since December, which is phenomenal. But yeah, we were crushed. Like if I just had to be awesome, I'd be in really, really bad shape, and definitely not a lot of opportunity. I mean, you don't make money on podcasts. You have to be really good with what you do. You have to have a huge following.
That's a fact, ladies and gentlemen. That is a fact.
And in your position and my position, we're never going to sell out. So we're not going to say, hey, you can put whatever ad you want on here because I want money. It's going to be stuff you believe in. It's going to be stuff that's tied to the brand. Like I'll never promote a company or allow a promotion of a company that I don't believe in wholeheartedly, that I'm willing to call because one of my listeners has a bad experience with it. And I'm expecting that they don't have a bad experience with it. Those companies are hard to find. So, so my business is in speaking. Fortunately right now, the last 3 weeks, it's been amazing. A lot of the people that canceled have been reaching back out to me. These people all suffered too, like associations and organizations. They didn't get to have their events in 2020. So they got no revenue. And so for them to call me and say that they want to pay me to come to their event without having a keynote sponsor and just saying that they need to have you, that's a great feeling. And that's that retainment of hope that things are going to get better. And that's what I've been waiting for almost a year. So I'm going back on the road. My first keynote is on June 4th, and then I'm doing one on June 21st, and I'm limiting it to 15 to 20 this year because prior to this, the byproduct that's good, depending on what side of the house you talk to, I've been home for a year, which I was traveling 180 days a year prior to this for the last 5 years. So I'm home a lot, and I do enjoy it. It's I get to see my kids grow up. I get to be home every day and realize all the projects that I'm way behind on. And I get to, it's just kind of a different feeling. It's taken a little bit of getting used to even after a year.
That's unbelievable. So I just want to go to the chat real quick, Josh.
Yep.
So we have Trisha, who says she is new to Supply the Why, but can't wait to delve into the Facebook page. Thanks for sharing that close call with death. It's crazy how close we all are. Yep. Trisha, first of all, welcome. We're happy to have you. We always like when new visitors come along. Hopefully you enjoy this content and it'll encourage you to bring other people back. So let's open it up to questions in the chat. So if anybody has questions, this is the guy that you want to talk to about how to find a positive out of a negative. As you just heard, he lost his day job. He lost his personal business, all in a matter of what, a week or two?
100 hours.
In 100 hours.
Yeah. It was March 16th to March 20th. I guess it was the.
So in 2.5 weeks, he lost.
4 days.
2.5 business weeks. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So, and he was able to rebound, and here he is. He's back on the. He's back on the grind again. He's doing well. He's an evangelist. Something that I got to be honest. Outside of it being the last name of somebody that I'm friends with, I never heard evangelist.
Yeah. It's really, if anybody's in business, and they really want someone it's a sales role. It's you're selling. I mean, I always say, if you're not buying, you're selling. So everyone's born a salesperson, but it's a great opportunity. If a company wants to really get a gauge on what they do and how they do it, and then set an understanding of why your work matters, a good evangelist role will really knock it out of the park. Guy Kawasaki is the godfather of evangelism. He was at Apple in the 80s and then went back in the 90s. So, but yeah, it's a great role. And I don't mean to say, but the thread's moving pretty quick, but someone said, make gratitude your attitude. 100%. That's one of the greatest things that you can do. Recognizing people opposed to recognizing yourself. Don't humble brag. I try to recognize people. My podcast is all about recognizing other people. It's not about what I've done. It's about the amazing accomplishments. One of the greatest, I just said 100 hours and my mind just went to 127 hours. One of my greatest inspirations and great friends, Aaron Ralston, who was 127 hours. The guy that removed his own arm after it was attached to a boulder in Blue John Canyon. I always recognize that I'm so appreciative of him that like he one day he said to me, he said, "Hey, Peach, I really admire you." And I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "Because you just do things. It's like you don't even think about it." And I'm sitting here going, "Wow, this guy removed his own arm, and I'm getting some gratitude from him. I'm feeling good, but I don't know if that's really a compliment." But definitely make gratitude your attitude. Show appreciation. Show appreciation for people, even for the little things. My fiance Amy did something really cool. I got to give her this gratitude recognition. I think it's the coolest thing. She keeps a fully stocked snack tray with drinks and snacks, and has a sign with all the people that deliver. Whether it's DoorDash or Crescent Ridge, Mario's, or any of the places that we order from. And she's got this really nice letter that's right at the front door with this fully stacked, always fully stacked snack tray with drinks and food for people to take. And it's the letter below, it says, "Thank you for everything that you do and what you've supplied our family over the course of this COVID," because they put themselves in harm's way to deliver our milk. Like Dave's been here every single week from Crescent Ridge. Come hell or high water, every Monday we're stocked with milk, and he puts himself out there. We don't. We just walk to our front door and open up the milk box. So, I mean, that's something really cool that, show appreciation for people, even for the little things. It's a big deal.
I love it. We got a question for you. All right. So Trisha wants to know, Josh, how did you get through the early days? Did you get sad and depressed from all of that loss? If yes, it is understandable. So just really quick, talk about that. So what was your mindset when the reality of essentially losing all your revenue streams hit you?
So first of all, I think that if you're going through something, you should never go through it alone. And I think that if you're going through something tough enough, that you should definitely seek help. Mental health isn't a bad word. Mental health isn't something that just people that are born with it get. Mental health is something that you can accomplish by having, things that devastating losses and whatnot. And I share openly that I've had a therapist for many, many years. And yes, I went through the realization that Be Awesome might not be awesome anymore. And I realized that what's my baby and what I hope to grow and that that I've been patient with is now outside of my control. I'm losing it quickly. And I was concerned that I was going to lose my gainful employment. And then what? I mean, I was very fortunate when all this stuff happened and 14% of the country was unemployed. I still had a paycheck coming. I just didn't have, everything that I was expecting and hoping for. So, it was definitely hard. I think I was in shock for a good couple of months. I think everybody was. I think that there's like these 5 stages. I got to get the paperwork with the framework of it, but there's 5 stages when something tragic happens. There's like the initial shock phase. Then there's the phase like we can get through this. Then there's this lull phase, and then there's this uncertainty phase like this is going to last forever. And they all vary in how long they last. And I think my shock phase started March. My shock phase actually started March, I think 11th or 12th. I was in Jimmy V's restaurant in North Carolina, where I go very often. It's typically packed wall to wall, and I was the only person in there. And I was like, wow, this is really bad. And I'm 700 miles from home. And so I think I was in like a form of like denial and shock, probably from March to May. And then all the social unrest and everything started to happen. And then that just consumed you. So it was like, I don't think I actually got to think about it until August when we were supposed to go on family vacation. And I was pretty down. I was uncertain of what was going to happen. But again, I had people around me. My family in my house has been unbelievably supportive because they have to deal with the brunt of the BS and the pain every night that I deal with on my conversations with my dad, or the fact that my mother and 98-year-old grandmother live next door to us, and I haven't been in their house since last February. I mean, how bad is that? Terrified that you're going to give somebody something that you don't know if you've got or not, to the point where your own family lives next door to you and you don't go in their house. So yeah, but you gotta have people around you. And, if you feel like you need someone to talk to and you don't have someone, then you need to find someone that's professional that can guide you through it. I know my therapist has helped me immensely, if for nothing else, to give me an hour of my 168 given every week to just stop and think about things, just even if it's nothing.
Powerful stuff, Josh. We have another question which we addressed a little bit earlier. So Trisha wants to know how we know each other. So I think that she came on a little bit later, but she wants to know, how does Supply the Why know Josh and vice versa? So Trisha, just really quick, I'll touch upon it. What I just got into this podcasting, webcasting game about eight months ago. And when I was looking to get started, I didn't know what end of the microphone I was supposed to talk into. I didn't know what side of the computer I was supposed to look at. I didn't know anything. So I had, was looking for help. I knew that I had something that I wanted to say, a message that I wanted to get out there, but I didn't know how to do it. So I got connected with Josh through some mutual friends, and Josh kind of crimped me along and told me, hey, take a breath. Like that take a breath thing is real. He did tell me to take a breath. I called him flipping out one night. Yeah. I thought that I ruined some content and I didn't know how to retrieve it. And Josh was great about that. So that's kind of how we started out. I guess we knew each other years ago in high school.
Yeah. You know, indirectly.
Yes.
Competing towns, graduated high school the same year. Hadn't seen each other since 1994. 90. Yep. Well, 93 was when Clunan hurt his arm, right? It was 93 football season. Yeah.
Yep. So probably a party maybe in 1994. But the long and short is, it was a lifetime ago when we saw each other. We were both very different people back then. So that's how we know each other.
Yep.
So we have another comment. It says, seeking help is not a sign of weakness. Thanks for promoting that, Josh. I can't agree with you more about that, Josh. And that's something that if you stay tuned, you may see something about that here on Supply the Why.
Yeah. So,
well,
I mean, that makes
work for that.
I can't imagine the work that you have to do as a police officer and all police officers. Because if people don't take care of their mental health first and foremost, that could make a routine call into a really bad one, because of all of the tension, stress, and anxiety someone has, and you're going into something not knowing, right? So it's important on so many levels, and that goes with everybody has a story. So you might not be the one that has mental health, but beeping your horn at someone that's driving too slow, they might be on their last thread. I mean, we're seeing road rage incidents, like crazy right now. And it's just because people are just so burnt out and having such a hard time. So the people that aren't having mental health issues and challenges really need to be even more mindful of the people that might, and have even more restraint with their actions, and be kind. How hard is it to be kind? even when people aren't kind. It's kind of like a Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse, the best speech ever to the bouncers. Be nice. Just be nice until you don't need it, until you can't be nice. And then that's when he takes over.
And that's true. But I got to say though, Josh, it seems like it's hard. A lot of people, like, let's talk this through a little bit. When people are going through emotional situations, it takes a great deal of emotional intelligence to be able to recognize that, hey, I'm about to lash out on somebody that doesn't deserve it.
Yeah.
And to be able to recognize that and actually pump the brakes and refocus your energy in a way where you're not lashing out on somebody who doesn't deserve it. We've all done it. I mean, I know I've done it. I'm a human being just like anybody else. There's been times where, maybe I've been a little short with somebody close to me, whether it's a wife, a parent, my kids, a beloved coworker. You know what I mean? Like it happens.
Well, there's a couple of pieces to that, right? And one of them is ego, right? Someone wrongs you and your ego kicks in and you're like, I'm not going to let that person talk to me like that. I'm not going to let that person do this. I'm not going to, this company's not going to screw me out of my whatever it is. I'm not, your delivery's late or whatever your problem is. And instead of thinking that people are trying to wrong you, like I'll give the education system a good example, because they've just been kicked one side up and down the other. And I'm not saying that they're all right, but I mean, how many superintendent of schools or school committees are like sitting at like Montgomery Burns from The Simpsons, just going like this and going, I'm going to keep the kids home. I'm going to keep the kids home. Like, what's the benefit to them? Like, you have to stop and think, what is their benefit to that? And let me try to talk with logic opposed to emotion. Let me try to figure out what makes sense here, because it really isn't what you're probably thinking. It's like all of the problems that you have in the world, like if you really didn't think about it, and you stopped all the 99 things that it might be, you'll get to the one thing that it is at some point. But we're so consumed with all the possibilities. But people aren't that bad as a rule. And the ones that are, you can weed out pretty quick. And that's when you try to avoid them. I mean, get the book Talking to Crazy. There's another book, Ryan Holiday, Ego is the Enemy. It's worth reading because it definitely gives you a lot of insight to that.
So, Josh, on a positive note,
yeah,
Karen says, Josh, please share how people can order Be Awesome shirts.
Karen, the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce and one of the best sales representatives of Be Awesome. They can go to BEAUS, M as in Mary, beawesome.com and hit the shop button. We've got a limited edition Steve the Jerk shirt. So if you listen to episode 1, you hear my rooster try to attack me. And he's in the intro music, and we made a Steve the Jerk St. Patrick's Day shirt that's going to get printed actually next week. So yeah, pretty cool. And $3 of every shirt right now. We've made a commitment to the DuPont Ice Arena, which is the only full-size hockey rink in Washington, D.C., and it's in a really tough precinct. Like people get shot right outside the hockey rink, and they provide countless different programs, along with using the space where the arena is to have greenhouses and grow produce and sell them on the corners for the neighborhood. They also provide free speed hockey and figure skating for 3,000 of the local youth. Mimi Biney, the first African-American speed skater in the Olympics, actually trained there. And my goal is to have a food pantry there that anyone in the community can go and get a free meal. They have to do something to get it. So they're the executive director there, Ty Newberry. He is a stickler for this. You don't get given a free ride for anything. So whether you sweep the floor up or you pick up around the bleachers or you put some in the hockey pads away, you have to do something if you want to get something, and which is fair. But my goal is to raise enough money to put a food pantry there at some point in my grandfather's memory.
That's amazing, Josh. Good for you. All right. So again, Josh, why don't you throw that information in the comments?
Yep.
And again, if you want to share a link with me, I will share that during the week too, for people that want to come back, visit the Supply the Why page. That information will be there. Yep. So Kevin says, while you're doing that, Kevin says, talking to a professional and listening to them can make all the difference in the world. We see so much that it's hard to process on our own. The professionals really know how to break it all down. Well said, Kevin.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
Mm-hmm. So let's get to some positive stuff.
Yeah.
What do you got cooking? What's exciting for 2021 that's going to help us remember, how awesome life is and really get your brand back out there again?
Yeah. So we're working on some really cool podcast guests. We've been really trying to make sure that we have the guest more than we have the episode. So a lot of podcasts are, they're just putting episodes out just to put episodes out. So I'm trying to get some of my my guests, and timing has been tough. So I'm trying to have Andrew Brash, who is a friend of mine that I met a couple years ago. He was a keynote before me in Banff, Alberta, a couple years back, and he opened up his keynote with the first time he attempted to reach the summit of Mount Everest. He actually climbed twice. The first time he made it about 50 meters from the top and found someone that was assumed to be dead that was actually alive, that was left up there the day before, and carried him down and brought this gentleman back to life. Amazing story. So we're working on some really great guests for the podcast. We're going to be doing public speaking. We're going to start offering. We're going to be looking to do camps locally. I'm hoping that this opens up by the end of the year. I'd really like to do an event at Oaks Ames Memorial Hall, which is one of the podcast guests I had, Frederick Ames. I'd like to have an event where I bring a couple of speakers, a couple of my friends, like David Cooks, who's writes a book From Paralysis to Purpose. He became paralyzed from a spinal aneurysm at 13, and his accomplishments and everything that he's done since then is amazing. So having some really dynamic speakers come out for an event that anybody can attend. It's not going to be just limited to you have to spend a lot of money to be there. But yeah, we're just gonna look to come up with some new content. The new one is always find time to celebrate. We're building around that. I really have to get down and I have to write. There's no excuse for me not to write a book other than I'm awful at writing. I'm decent at speaking. I'm terrible at writing. My nickname is Run On around the house because my sentences, I think I sent you one or two of my emails. You're like, when does this sentence stop and the next paragraph begin? So, but I really need to start getting to work on that because I committed to doing it 3 years ago, and I'm not that far along. So, yeah. And I had Supply the Why as my podcast guest. I just saw
you're
that.
jumping into the chat there. Hold on.
Sorry
Let me put
about
that up there.
Yeah, I don't want to jump on that. Oh, I didn't see you even do that. That's pretty cool. You like, so you sit here and tell me about how, I helped you, but you've shown me so much with technology, and you're just moving the switchboard around, doing all this stuff. You're like a magician. And I'm sitting here just like, I had to go on to the Facebook page to put my post on. So I don't even know what I'm doing.
Well, it's like you said, you learn, you make mistakes, and you get back up, and you make adjustments if you want. If you're real, if you know what I mean. If you're real and you really want to do something long term, that's what you do. So, Mike, yeah, I've already been on Josh's podcast. There is a link that I believe is on the Supply the Why page. If not, we will go ahead and get that up there. But yes, I've been on his podcast.
I will put the session up. I'll find it, and I will get it on here for everybody as well.
So let me go back to answer a question. So Trisha wants to know, yes, I am in Stoughton. I'm from Stoughton. My family has been in town here since 1976. And Trisha says that she will be supporting Be Awesome as well. Glad to have found us. Thanks to Jasmine from church, who sent her the link around 5 p.m. tonight. So thank you again for joining us. And thank you, Jasmine, for spreading the love. We appreciate it. Kevin says that ego needs to be replaced by appreciation. We are still in a great profession, and there are a whole lot of people looking for work and going through bad times. Kevin, I believe, is on the job, as we say in police work.
No. All right. Thank you for what you do, Kevin. That's absolutely. And there's a lot of appreciation out there for the work that you do. And sadly, there's a lot of not appreciation out there. And I think you just focus on as much of the appreciation as you can. I get a lot of family members in the field, and I know how tough it can be. Yeah, absolutely. It's I didn't want this to turn into anything about what I do, but since people have brought it there, police work right now, it's a strange beast right now. It is very much damned if you do and damned if you don't. We're at a strange time. People want the police when it's convenient for them, but when it's not convenient for them, now we're a nuisance and we are an unnecessary evil in a lot of people's eyes. There's people that think that that society could actually function without police, which is I guess that would be a perfect world, if you didn't need police, but it's not the world. I mean, if everybody was a law-abiding citizen and everybody went by the certain, standards of everything, then I guess you don't need anyone. But I think that there's always people. I'm not going to say that I've never broken a law. I've got speeding tickets. I've got things that I've probably done in my past. But I think that police are definitely a necessary for keeping the peace, and a couple of bad ones shouldn't ruin the bunch. Is it peaches? Do peaches come in bunches? What do they come in? Bundles? I don't even eat peaches. That's my last name.
Oh man, you're missing out. Yeah. You're missing out.
I'll tell you what, when the season comes around, you come over to the house. I got one of the most beautiful peach trees. Didn't bear fruit ever for almost 25 years. And the last 2 years, we have had such just hundreds and hundreds of them. And I just never got into them.
Peaches are in the Mount Rushmore of fruit, my friend.
Oh,
you
know
man. What I mean? So you don't have to ask me twice. And the something you also might not know is, for those of us that like to smoke, that's one of the things I like to do. I like to smoke ribs and pulled pork and things like that. Peach is amazing.
Really?
For pork. Oh, it's amazing for pork and chicken. Anything white meat, my goodness, it's nice and gentle. Like I said, we're going to go off on a whole different tangent here.
Well, I'll start telling you about the pastrami that my childhood friend Scott Rosati made for me this weekend, which didn't stand a chance in my house. I ate it in about a millisecond. So yeah, I'm all about smoked foods and meats, and I could go. Yeah, we could go for days.
Yeah, we'll have to talk more about that off the air. But that's a passion of mine that unfortunately I don't have a lot of time to do these days. But I shall return to the
One of my goals in life, I told Amy this the other day, is one of my quiet secret goals in life is to actually start something that plants fruit trees at schools, because schools have some of the most beautiful grounds. We have apple trees at the top of our driveway, and when I was asked why I did that, I live on a very busy street. It's so that when apples grow, that people can just stop and take some free apples, because why not? And so I think it'd be really cool that if schools have all these beautiful shrubs and trees and everything, but they don't do anything. Like, they're good for appearance. Like, how cool would it be to have, a couple of good apple trees in front of an elementary school where you could pick the apples and put them in the cafeteria for the kids to eat, and they know where it comes from. So,
Josh, I got to jump in on that.
yeah.
Now, here's the difference between you and your be awesome mindset, where you are glass half full, and me as my 17 years in law enforcement mindset. So
I
know
where you're going. I know where you're going.
You know what? You're going to put those trees up, and some opportunist is going to show up and going to pillage those trees of all those apples, and then turn around and sell them roadside someplace.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's because I kind of know that's how it's going to happen, because that's
I think that's
what people do.
That's a risk I'd be willing to take. It goes back to that Ty Newberry with the DuPont Ice Arena. I asked him, because it's in a very bad area in Washington, D.C. I said, what happens if someone steals that? What happens if people steal the produce? And he says, well, they obviously need it a lot more than we do. And so, if somebody's going to steal the apples, or they're going to do whatever, then, I guess that's a risk I'd want to be willing to take, because there's a lot of hungry kids. And if, we could provide them, and if not just provide them, show them where food comes from. Mm-hmm. My grandparents were immigrants. We grew or killed what we ate for the most part. Very simple means. And we had chickens and rabbits and gardens. And my grandfather was an unbelievable gardener. So I know where food comes from, fresh food. I didn't have any processed foods or McDonald's or any of that stuff when I was a kid. I was very lucky. I didn't realize it back then, but it's one of my personal goals, is to develop some sort of program to put fruit trees in schools. And people will probably look at that as a devil's advocate. I thought you were going to go with the kids are going to throw the apples against the window or something, and giving them something to do, smashing apples against the building. So I'd rather them steal it than that. Yeah. So,
but again, this just speaks to mindset and how you have the I'm going to say the good fortune to be able to live on the glass half full side, because it's the type of thing where, even as much as I would want to live on the glass half full side, I can't undo 17 of my 45 years on this earth in the things that I've seen, smelled, heard, tasted, and been a part of. Yeah. It's hard to undo that now. It's become a part of the fabric of who I am as a person. I try to be positive, and I try to see the good in people and things like that. But if you put me in a room with 10 people and one of them is a thief, I might be able to mock that thief. You know what I mean? Where the average person might not have a good idea, and it's because of those experiences that you have. It becomes a self-preservation thing.
Yeah, I mean, you can't unlearn anything that you see or that you experience, and that's why it's so important. With raising kids the best that we can. These kids are going to be pushing us around in our wheelchairs, so giving them the best experience and trying to minimize their negative impact on the things that they feel, see, and experience is something that we should all be working at, not just a selective few or just counting on the parents and trying to just do better. And it's not always easy, but I applaud and appreciate it. Anyone that's that's given signed a check up to payable up to their life, and that's anybody in our first responders and military. Thank you, because it doesn't matter why you signed up or how you signed up. You put yourself in a position where there's things that you wish you could unlearn that you're just not going to be able to. It doesn't matter how hard you are. It doesn't matter how big, bad, and tough you are. That stuff sticks with you. So
I'll share something real quick. One of the unspoken side effects of my job is, like, you hear me sometimes, I talk about the finality of life. I try to put it as politically correct and as nice as I can, death. And it affects people different ways. So I've had people where I have been there when a loved one has taken their last breath or shortly thereafter. And some people, when they see me, they've broken down into tears just by the sight of me. Mm-hmm. I've had people that come up and hug me. And one of the worst things that's ever happened to me, I had a woman who saw me. I'm the only black cop in Stoughton, so she knew it was me. And she ran when she saw me in the car. She couldn't stand the sight of me because it reminded her of the worst day of her life. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a lot to carry around. That's tough.
Yeah,
that's a tough reality that you have to deal with. That this is you mean different things to different people. When you were just there trying to be human to them, but because the gravity of that moment was so heavy for them, that this one woman, she actually she turned around.
The experiences that every experience you have is unique, and you remember all of them, and they're just this all over the place, right? And that's got to be heartbreaking. Like every time that you would see her, you know what you're in for, right?
It was just like what it was the first time she'd seen me since, and then since then I've seen this person, and we're back. Like I'm a hugger. Like I'm a bit like people who know me out there. Like hello, everybody out there that knows me. I'm a hugger, and I'm like I'm if I like you, I'm very.
So that was actually gonna be my question. When you're put in those situations and you're on the beat, I think that's how you would say it. Do you hug do you hug people that are going through stuff, or
pre-COVID?
Yeah,
I give them the option. So, again, especially when you become a supervisor, your job, if you're a good supervisor, you don't make your people give bad news. That's your job, is to give bad news. Like that kind of bad news. Not like, hey, your license suspended, I'm towing your car. I'm talking about like end of life bad news. Like that's your job. So I have always been the kind of person where if I see somebody is having a human reaction to that kind of news, I will ask them. I said, is there anything I can do for you? I mean, can I, if someone's, usually women, like I'm saying, can I give you a hug?
Yeah.
Do you, and a lot of times I haven't been turned down yet.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I think that makes people feel better, just knowing that you are, you're having a human moment with them, and you're bonded with them, and you're acknowledging that their pain is real and their pain is valid.
Yeah.
And that's part of what people want. And I have to believe that it's the right way to do it. If that's everything where I can't do that anymore, I don't know if I'll be right for this job. I'm always going to want to be there for people that are feeling that.
Yeah. Think about that. Just think about the number of people that have gone through hurt and couldn't get a hug from Officer Dean when they went through something for COVID. Our youngest son fell and hit his head pretty hard. It looked like he had a head growing out of his head. We got nervous and freaked out, and we're just thinking about, like, if we had taken him to the hospital, is he going to be alone? What's that like? Like, think about the people that are going through stuff that had nobody that would get a hug from you, or an affirmation from someone in a hospital that can't get it right now with COVID. That's hard. So, like you say, if we can't do that again, because I'm a high five, handshake, and hugger myself. Yeah. When I go to an event, whatever you want, I'm down. You want a handshake? You want a high five? You want a hug? Whatever. And that's a hard thing. So,
and for the record, I'm sorry, Josh. I see this comment here. It's not that I take it personal, because I don't take it personal. I really don't think it's about me, but it is painful to think that when somebody sees you, that you remind them, you're a constant reminder of the worst day of their life.
Yeah. Like
that's not something that's not natural. That's not something human beings aren't meant to be that. You know what I mean? Like that's not what we're meant to be. And because think about it, when you do something nice for somebody without even knowing it, you get like endorphins. You feel good when you do something nice for somebody and you're there for them. Like it's not a conscious thing. It's just a fact. Like you just feel good. Like my kids feel good when they do something and they get that attaboy from my wife or I. Well, that doesn't go away when you become a police officer. You feel good when you're there for somebody and you're human to somebody at a time where they need somebody to be human to them.
Yeah.
And so that's what it is more so than anything, Kevin.
Yeah,
I kind of feel like somehow that woman, I don't know, like I just reminded her of the worst day of her life, and sometimes that's tough. That's not ever anybody's intention. That's all.
Yeah, you don't ever want to be there, but in many cases you have to be, right? So it's like you have to be there, and you're like, man, this is like how hard is this? And because you have the experience, you now know that that's going to stick, that you were there. But at the flip side, it's like, well, maybe you're the greatest person to be there because you handle it better than just about anybody that would have ever handled it. But I totally get what you're saying. It's not personal and it's not about you. I mean, it's a job.
Definitely not.
Do and the way that you handle it. Yeah, I didn't take it that way at all.
Like I said, we're human beings, and we have feelings. We felt lost too, So we, obviously we understand what it's like to be on both sides of that. Josh, we're down to about a minute, my man.
You guys know everybody. That's the thing that people need to understand. The fabric of the community is by far and above our public employees all around, teachers, first responders, everyone. You know everybody. So when someone gets hurt or killed or something happens or you have to deliver bad news, typically that's somebody you know. I mean, it's like communities, especially in New England, are family. We are villages that we all know everybody, and you're responsible to do that. Being around the schools all the time. So I can't imagine.
Well, there's definitely like a 6 degrees of separation thing happening. That's for sure. Yep. Josh, we got about 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Give us some quick shout outs and how people can follow you, how people can like you, and how people can support your journey and your project.
I don't know how you did this. You did this with your mother posting on here, and that's fantastic because I tell my family that they can't let me know that they're on. So I think my mother and Amy are listening to this. So thank you for sitting in, listening, and not making me nervous with your comments. But yeah, you can find me. You can email me, Josh, JOSH @BeAwesome, and it's BEAUSM.com. www.beawesome.com. I'm on all social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. I'm open to doing speaking engagements with any association, group, or organization. We talk about what might be a fit. If you can be anything, be awesome. Always find time to celebrate, or just a general talk to look and see what matters, what should matter, and why your work is important, whatever that is. And everyone's important. So I appreciate the opportunity, my friend. This is great. And you're going to be wildly successful. Just like I told you back in July, you are making a huge difference. And when I say wildly successful, it's not just in money, it's in life. You're making people happy and you're having difficult conversations. I can't remember what you called it. Beef stew, conversational beef stew.
Conversational beef stew. Yeah. It's thick, it's chunky, and it's messy, man. And we just got to dive in there and we just got to eat it one bite at a time. That's what a difficult conversation is.
Yeah. I'm honored to be a small part of Supply of the Why, and always in your corner, my friend. If there's anything I can ever do, happy to see you grow in the way that you're growing and the stuff that you're doing. So keep it up, and we will stay in touch. We'll go have a Supply of the Why burger at McGuire's because they're having them permanently now. You're like permanently on the menu. How's that work?
They just reached out to me and told me that it's a permanent fixture in the menu. They've sold like 100 of those things.
Yeah,
and so they decided to keep it on the menu. So I'm honored. Thank you, McGuire's. Thank you for people that have gone out and eaten that delicious burger. It's bananas. Go try it.
Yep.
It's a great thing. So we're up against it here. Folks, thank you so much for taking time away from your families. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for staying with me on an episode that's a little bit different than my normal episode, because I think it's important to hit on different topics and to bring all kinds of different people together to have difficult conversations and to show people out there that we can get through these tough times if we get together, if we talk, if we seek to understand, things can get a little bit better for everybody. So that's all I got for everybody. Good night. Thank you again, Josh.
Thank you.
And we'll see everybody next week. We'll see everybody next week. All right. And always remember, #Supply the Why.